Welcome to the Daily Agenda. Sorry for the lateness of the hour, but I've been locked in important conversations with people in the nationalist movement at the highest level in terms of the rebalancing and rebuilding project, which we'll come to later. Probably not even in this podcast, another podcast perhaps. That said, last night saw a very important development in the public domain. Insofar, Steve Laws finally let rip on Tommy Robinson. This wasn't the the recalcitrance that we saw in the friendly little chat with Liam Tufts. This was full on, both barrels, give it him, straight in the face, so to speak. And that's exactly what Steve Laws did. And he described Tommy Robinson as a Zionist piece of shit and a scumbag, and then outlined the actual reasons why Tommy is an enemy of the British people and the English in particular, which he is, in truth. So Steve restated everything that I've said about him being a Zionist, Israeli agent, an Irish citizen who lives in Spain. There's absolutely nothing English about the man, other than he hides behind some patriotic sound bites and flag shagging to draw in those who don't really know anything about politics. Tommy focuses on the politically illiterate, but the interview with Nate and Bodade on the state of politics was very interesting, in truth. There's one thing I have to say about it, well, two things actually, which actually quite concerned me. So Steve has a very, how could I put it, lame position on Rupert Lowe, which in my opinion needs to change completely. And the stepping stones, well, we've been through the stepping stone strategy before, and it's false. It doesn't hold water unless nationalists are actively building a replacement organisation for when fake Farage screws up completely, and he will, because everything Nigel does is controlled by the establishment. And when he's told to flat pack reform or not to deliver on the vast majority of his so-called promises and assurances, his policy planks, that's exactly what Nigel will do. So if there's no nationalist organisation in situ to replace deepfake reform, then the stepping stones policy is just absolute nonsense, isn't it? But that said, his opinion on, not punching to the right, and all three of them, well, yeah, we don't punch to the right. Well, that's not true, is it? At all, because I've seen Bodade on the Lotus Eaters with Carl Benjamin, and Benjamin, of course, you know my feelings and thoughts towards Carl Benjamin, irrespective of the fact that we know he's pulling his punches because he's got to find $2 million a year to float his operation, and therefore he can't be quite so forthright as he would like to be, which does a great disservice to nationalism in itself, does it not? I won't be doing that, because I don't need to find $1 to $2 million every year to float the Daily Agenda, and that's the beauty of it, isn't it? And I don't have any staff to pay either, and so therefore I don't need to mince my words. Sorry, I don't mince my words, do I? And so Bodade, yeah, I remember the notorious occasion, and this is what contradicts what Steve Laws said about Carl Benjamin. Well, he doesn't slag me off and he doesn't tell people stay away from Steve Laws. Well, I've actually seen Carl Benjamin twice on the Lotus Eaters describe Steve Laws as a notorious online racist, and look at Bodade for, confirmation, for affirmation, and sat there sniggering and laughing. It's not exactly not punching to the right, is it? Certainly not in my opinion. And then there was also the other notorious occasion when, and Benjamin has said this quite a few times, now we've actually seen off the threat from the British National Party. Well, Benjamin is a Sivnat, Tommy Todd, big Tommy fanboy, isn't he? Do you get the point I'm making? And why would he need to see off the threat from the British National Party? Which, of course, is just about as deluded as Nigel Farage, because in truth, Carl Benjamin did absolutely nothing to see off the BNP. That was all done by Nick Griffin and his criminal cabal, which is why the BNP is now in the hands of two career criminals. One of them a bigger criminal than the other, Clive Jefferson. Grifters. And the 22 million that they've had since 2010, I'm not talking about just Jefferson and Walker, could have been put to a much better use of actually dismantling the establishment. Instead, Griffin wrecked it, and of course, Jefferson and Walker inherited it, didn't they? They inherited the wreckage and all the money that came with it. So to say they don't punch to the right isn't true. So I think Steve Laws needs to drop that nonsense straight away. But, finally, and I was hoping he would do this with Liam Tufts, but obviously they were having a polite conversation with one another in the studio. Well, semi-polite anyway. We wouldn't have had any semi-polite conversation with me, because I would call him a Zionist piece of shit and a scumbag straight to Liam Tufts' face. What's he going to do about it? Oh, show me some teeth, is he? How scary? Of course, because none of them really are scary, are they? I mean, as I said before, they're mobsters. They're good in the gang. I mean, we saw Tommy get totally humiliated by Ty Mitchell, himself a murderer, a criminal. So really, a convicted murderer takes a convicted fraudster, grifter, junkie to task over their differences on what? Islam. Well, so what? So what? But credit to Steve Laws for actually launching this very direct attack on Tommy Robinson in public, because we know what Steve believes to be the case about Tommy and his ilk behind the scenes, but I don't think we've ever really seen him go full frontal like this, particularly on a show like the State of Politics, which is now building itself up on the back of the Lotus Eaters. Very clever strategy, isn't it? Considering the fact that I built up the Daily Agenda on the back of no one other than my own work, my own words, that is. I don't need to build this channel up on the back of someone else's channel, and I won't be doing it. And anyone who invites me to appear on much bigger channels than this will be refused, because I will be accused of building up the Daily Agenda by piggybacking on other channels, so I won't be doing that either. Okay? But credit to Steve Laws for finally coming out and trashing Tommy Robinson, and for saying that he is a threat to the British people and to the English, because he is just completely fake and false. He's an Israeli agent, a Zionist puppet, and a piece of shit and a scumbag. But Steve doesn't have any problem with his personal life, like junkies and hookers, etc. Well, I do, because it's all paid for with grifting money. Donations that they've robbed of people who thought they were donating money to a worthwhile cause, just for them to snort it up the nose and end up in bed with some scrubber for money. Donations money. So I do have a big problem with it. This is the reason why I stopped watching Dino Bane, or Dino Bane as he calls himself, because he actually produced a show saying, I'm not bothered about people who take drugs. Well, I am, because the vast majority of crime in this country is caused by people looking for money to pay for their drug habits. So yes, I do have a problem with it. Absolutely. I particularly have a problem when people are buying drugs, cocaine in particular, using money that's been given to fund one cause or another, which is never delivered. Like the £100,000 Tommy wanted for a studio, which never got built, did it? Never got constructed. It never came to fruition. I mean, the scams are endless, in scammer drama land. And that's all Tommy is, Mr. Scammer Drama. Forget panodrama, it's scammer drama, because that's all Tommy is involved in, one scam after another. Somebody could write a book about it called One Scam After Another. Maybe I will. Who knows? We'll see how it goes next year. I've got another book to write first. But yeah, Steve Laws, fantastic job on delivering an almighty tongue lashing against Tommy. Now, what we all want to see is Tommy to gather enough moral fibre to face Steve Laws in a studio debate. As I have no doubt whatsoever that Steve Laws, because people want to be entertained by this, apparently, don't they? I've no doubt at all that Steve Laws would polish him off quite easily. Of course, Tommy would get really upset and aggressive and semi-violent, because that's all he does. Apart from when he's dealing with somebody like Ty Mitchell, of course. When he gets bullied and pushed around. The real Tommy Robinson. In it, bro. You know what I mean? The little Luton gangster. But yeah, it was quite entertaining, wasn't it? Last night in Dubai. But even more entertaining, quite frankly, would be that clash between Steve Laws and Tommy Robinson. And want to see it. I mean, I put up a video after the show last night, Just a brief video, over a minute long, and it's already got 110,000 views on X.com, formerly Twitter. So yeah, absolutely, there is a big audience for it, and we need to feed that audience, because it is that audience we need to draw towards us ultimately, if what they claim about the stepping stone strategy is ever going to come to fruition. Is that not the case? Well, it is. And behind the scenes, I'm trying to build a new nationalist organisation with completely different faces, new faces. Absolutely. We're using the new faces. The toxic old guard is just being left behind because they've got nothing to offer than the same old toxic infighting. And some of the younger ones are exactly the same as well, so we won't be using them. And so, yes, that's what we're trying to do. Where Steve falls down, obviously, and I've said this before, is the fact that there is no blueprint at all to underpin the policy of total remigration. So how's it going to work in reality? What are the mechanics of it? So there's nothing there that anybody can read. It's just sound bites. And Steve needs to come up with a detailed blueprint to guide people in the direction of how this can work pragmatically. And until we see that, we're still looking at a soundbite battle, because that's all Tommy does, is sound bites as well. So if people want to watch a soundbite battle, fair enough, no problem at all. I'm game for it. I'll watch it, certainly, absolutely. But both of them are light on detail, and Steve needs to produce that detail. And if he can, then obviously that will be a great benefit to him, a real boon to his argument. But at this moment in time, we're going to stick to the 95% white supermajority through remigration. We're not going to be supporting total remigration, as I don't believe it's tenable. In truth, I really don't. But yeah, absolutely, credit to Steve. Because people say, "Oh, you're against Steve Laws." I'm not against Steve Laws. I've never been against him. In actual fact, I've made my position on Steve perfectly clear. Steve, needs to fill in a few of those gaps, quite frankly. And when he does that, I'm sure he'll be able to deliver something far more substantial than what he's doing. Because up against real opposition, reductionist interrogation, he will not stand up to it. Okay? So that's what needs to happen there. They need to fill in their own gaps. And if they don't see that, then that's their problem, not mine, isn't it? But thank you for tuning into the Daily Agenda. And we're back again tomorrow on the winter solstice with something completely different, hopefully. Thank you for tuning in. Take care.